Alex slammed both hands on the hospital front desk and said, "I don't care who she is, somebody pay for this woman's surgery right now or I will." He had $43 in his wallet. He hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. His son Leo was home alone with a fever. And the woman bleeding out on that gurney. He'd pulled her from a wrecked car on the side of a dark highway 20 minutes ago, a complete stranger. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her face. He didn't know she was worth $11 billion. But she knew his. Drop your city in the comments right now. I want to see how far this story travels. And if this hits you in the chest like it hit me, hit subscribe because this one's going to stay with you. The night it happened, Alex Mercer was already running on empty. Not the kind of tired that a good night of sleep fixes. The deep kind. The kind that lives behind your eyes and follows you into every room. The kind that single fathers know by first name. He was driving home on Route 9, the stretch of highway just outside Millbrook, Ohio, that everybody called the Widowmaker, not because of crashes, but because of the long, lonely silence of it. No streetlights for 2 miles. Cornfields on both sides. The kind of road that made a man feel like the last person left on earth. Leo had called at 6:47 p.m. "Dad, I don't feel good." That was enough. Alex had told his supervisor he was leaving. His supervisor, a 26-year-old kid named Bryce, who wore cologne that cost more than Alex's electric bill, had looked up from his desk and said, "You leave now, I'm writing you up." Alex had looked at him for exactly 2 seconds. "Write me up, Bryce." And he walked out. That was the thing about Alex Mercer. He wasn't the kind of man who made speeches. He didn't have a lot of words. But every decision he made was clean, surgical. He knew what mattered, and he cut everything else away. What mattered was Leo. Leo, who was 11 years old, and who had his mother's eyes, and his father's stubbornness, and a gift for drawing that made teachers stop in the middle of class just to look. Leo, who had been asking for a new set of colored pencils for 3 months, and who kept telling his dad, "It's okay, Dad, these ones still work." Even though Alex had watched him trying to use a pencil that was ground down to a nub the size of a thumbnail. Leo, who was home alone with a fever of 101 because the after-school sitter had canceled and Alex had no one else to call. He was doing 70 on Route 9 windows down because the truck's heat only worked on one side and the smell of the vents bothered him. The radio was off. He was just driving thinking about whether he had enough chicken soup in the cabinet when his headlights caught something on the shoulder. A car, or what was left of one. A black Mercedes nose first into the ditch driver's side crumpled against the guardrail. Steam rising from the hood. No hazard lights, no movement. Alex hit his brakes. He told himself later that he almost didn't stop. Not because he didn't care, but because he knew the cost of stopping. He knew what it would mean for Leo. He knew that every minute he spent on that highway was a minute his sick kid was home alone, wondering where his father was. He almost didn't stop. But the car wasn't moving, and nobody else was on the road. And Alex Mercer was the kind of man he was, so he pulled over. He got out and jogged to the Mercedes gravel popping under his boots. "Hey, anybody in there?" Nothing. He got to the driver's window and looked in. A woman, mid-30s maybe, dark hair cut close to her jaw. She was slumped sideways against the door, a thin line of blood running from above her ear down the side of her neck. Her face was pale, not pale, like scared pale, like a body that's losing the argument with consciousness. "Ma'am?" He knocked on the glass. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Her eyes moved, just barely. Her lips parted. He tried the door. Locked. He went around to the passenger side unlocked. He climbed in, leaned across the center console, and put 2 fingers against her neck. Pulse. Weak, but there. "Okay," he said mostly to himself. "Okay, you're alive. Good. That's good." He pulled out his phone and dialed 911. "911, what's your emergency?" "I got a woman's single car accident on Route 9 about a mile past the Millbrook grain elevator. She's unconscious, possible head injury. She's breathing but her pulse is weak. I need an ambulance." "Sir, are you with the victim now?" "I'm in her car. Don't move her if possible. Can you tell me? The woman's hand moved. It was slow, confused, the way a person moves when they don't know where they are yet. Her fingers found the center console and gripped it. Then her eyes opened. They were dark brown, focused in a way that surprised him, given the blood on her face. She looked at him, this stranger in her car, and she didn't scream. She didn't panic. She just stared at him with those steady, dark eyes and said in a voice scraped raw, "Don't tell them who I am." Alex blinked. "What?" "Please." Her grip on the console tightened. "Just don't give them my name. Not yet." He stared at her. On the phone, the dispatcher was saying something. He pressed the phone against his chest and looked at this woman, bleeding, barely conscious, wrecked car, middle of nowhere, and she was asking him to protect her identity. He should have ignored it. He should have given the dispatcher her name, found her ID, done the rational thing. Instead, he heard himself say, "I don't know your name." She looked at him for a long second. Something shifted in her face. "Sam," she said. "My name is Sam." The ambulance took 19 minutes. Alex stayed in the car with her the whole time, one hand holding a folded gas station receipt against the cut on her head, other hand on his phone in case her pulse changed. She drifted in and out. When she was conscious, she didn't talk much. Just asked once if her car was bad. "Pretty bad," he said. "Was it my fault?" He glanced at the road. There were no skid marks. Something in the road, maybe. Ice patch. Deer. Didn't matter now. "Doesn't look like it." She nodded and drifted again. When the paramedics arrived, they moved fast. Alex stood back and watched them load her onto the stretcher, her dark hair fanned against the orange pillow. One of the paramedics asked him if he was family. "No," he said. "I just found her." "You coming to the hospital?" He thought about Leo. He thought about the soup. He thought about the fact that he didn't know this woman from Eve and had a sick kid waiting at home. "Yeah," he said. "I'm coming." Millbrook General was not a big hospital. It had 42 beds, one working MRI machine, and a waiting room that smelled like industrial cleaner and burnt coffee. Alex had been there before once, when Leo broke his wrist in the 4th grade once, when Alex himself had gotten 2 fingers crushed at the loading dock and spent 4 hours waiting to be told they were bruised, not broken. He knew the front desk. The woman working it tonight was named Patrice 50s, reading glasses on a beaded chain, the kind of patience that only comes from years of dealing with frightened people. "Alex," she said when she saw him. "You all right?" "Brought someone in. She came in with the ambulance, dark hair, head injury. They just took her back." "She your person?" "No. Found her on Route 9. Patrice looked at him over her glasses. "And you're here because—" "She doesn't have anybody with her." He said it simply. No drama. Just fact. Patrice shook her head slowly, the way people do when they're trying not to show they're moved. "Go sit down, Alex." He sat. He texted Leo. "Bringing soup soon. You okay?" 3 dots. "Then I'm okay, Dad. My head hurts. I know, buddy. 20 minutes. It was not 20 minutes. It was 2 hours. Somewhere in the 2nd hour, a doctor came out and found him in the waiting room, still in his work jacket, dried blood on the cuff of his left sleeve, looking at his phone. "Are you with the Jane Doe they brought in?" "I'm the one who found her." The doctor, young guy, tired around the eyes, looked at his clipboard. "She's awake. Mild concussion, some lacerations, nothing critical. She's asking for you." "For me?" She said, and I quote, "the man in the flannel jacket." They had put her in a room at the end of the hall. She was sitting up in bed, which surprised him. She had a bandage above her ear, an IV in her arm, and she was wearing a hospital gown that she'd somehow managed to make look like she'd chosen it deliberately. There was something about the way she held herself straight-backed, chin up, that didn't match the wreck he'd pulled her out of. "You stayed?" she said when he came in. "For a little while." "You didn't have to." "I know." She looked at him. Really looked the kind of look that takes inventory of a person without being rude about it. The work jacket. the calluses on his hands, the faint shadows under his eyes. "What's your name?" she asked. "Alex." "Alex." She seemed to test the weight of it. "Do you do this a lot?" "Alex, stop for strangers." "First time," he said honestly. "Why tonight?" He thought about it. Shrugged. "You weren't moving." Something in her face softened. Not dramatically, just a small, almost private shift, like a curtain moving in a window when you can't feel the wind. "I need to ask you something," she said, "and I need you to be straight with me." "All right?" "They're asking for insurance information. I don't have my wallet. I think it's in the car or maybe on the road somewhere. They're going to ask about payment." She paused. "Are they going to turn me out?" He crossed his arms. "They're not going to turn you out. It doesn't work that way." "It works that way sometimes." "Not tonight. I'll handle it." She stared at him. "You don't know me." "No. You don't owe me anything." "I know that too." A long beat. Outside in the hallway, a cart rattled past. Somewhere down the wing, a television was on low. "Why?" she asked. Quiet. Genuine. Not challenging, just asking. Alex thought about Leo at home. About $43 in his wallet. About the overtime he wasn't going to get now because he'd left early. He looked at this woman in the hospital bed, this stranger named Sam, who asked him not to give her name, and who held herself like she'd never once in her life let anyone see her afraid, and he said the only honest thing he had. Because it's the right thing to do. He went back to the front desk and talked to Patrice for 10 minutes. He couldn't cover the bill, he knew that. Patrice knew that. But she helped him find the hospital's charity care form, walked him through the financial assistance process, made sure a social worker would follow up in the morning. She did it quietly, the way good people do good things, without making a production of it. When he came back to the room, Sam was watching the door. "It's handled," he said. "For tonight at least. They'll have a social worker come by in the morning." She didn't say thank you right away. She looked at him for a moment, that same measuring look, and then she said, "Is there someone waiting for you?" "My son." "How old?" 11. He's got a fever." She blinked. Something moved across her face fast, something that looked almost like guilt. "You've been here for 2 hours with a sick kid at home." "He's okay. I checked." "Alex." "He's okay," he said again. Firm, but not harsh. "I wouldn't be here if he wasn't okay." She was quiet for a moment. "What's his name?" "Leo." "Leo." She said it the same way she'd said his name, like she was filing it somewhere careful. "He's lucky." "I'm the lucky one," Alex said, and he meant it. He pulled on his jacket and moved to leave. "Alex." Her voice stopped him at the door. He turned. "You said you owe me nothing." She held his eyes. "You're right. You don't. So whatever you did tonight, thank you. Not because you owed it. Because you chose it." He stood there for a second. Nodded once. "Take care of yourself, Sam." He drove home and made Leo chicken soup from a can and sat on the edge of his son's bed while he slept. And for a reason he couldn't name. Alex Mercer thought about those dark eyes for a long time after. He didn't go back to the hospital. He told himself that he'd done his part. He told himself that she was in good hands. He told himself that a woman like that, whoever she was, whatever her story, didn't need a man with $43 in his wallet and a beat-up truck showing up to play hero. He told himself a lot of things. 3 days later, a package arrived at his apartment. Small box, no return address. Inside was a set of Prismacolor Premier colored pencils, 150 colors, the kind that came in a metal tin, the kind that Leo had circled in a catalog once and never mentioned again because he knew better. There was a card. 2 words handwritten. For Leo. Alex stared at the card for a long time. He turned it over. No signature. No name. Just the 2 words and something else. Something small in the bottom corner, almost like an afterthought. A single line. "You chose right." He set the card down on the kitchen table. He looked at the tin of pencils. He thought about a woman with a bandage over her ear, sitting up straight in a hospital bed, like she was used to rooms bending to her shape. Sam, he thought. Just Sam. He didn't know yet. He couldn't have known. The name on the hospital's charity paperwork would later flag a clerical error, a John Doe converted to Jane Doe, a form quietly and expertly intercepted by someone who knew exactly how hospitals processed their paperwork. He didn't know that the modest black Mercedes before it hit that guardrail had been leased under a shell company. He didn't know that Sam was short for Samantha Hale, and that Samantha Hale's face appeared on the cover of Forbes 2 years ago under the headline, "America's Most Reclusive Billionaire." He didn't know any of it. He just knew that his son was going to have colored pencils for Christmas. And sometimes late at night, when the apartment was quiet and Leo was asleep, Alex would find himself at the window looking out at the parking lot and the streetlight and the long, flat stretch of Ohio night, and he would think about that moment in the car on Route 9. The blood, the pulse, the eyes. Don't tell them who I am. He'd kept that promise without even knowing what it cost. What he didn't know, what none of them knew yet, was that Samantha Hale had already found out everything about him. His address, his employer, Leo's school, the name of Leo's mother who had died 4 years ago, and the size of the debt Alex had been quietly drowning in ever since. She wasn't going to help him. She told herself that clearly, firmly, the way she made every business decision without sentiment. She was just going to watch. For now. 3 weeks passed. Alex didn't think about her every day. Maybe every other day. Maybe every time Leo opened that tin of colored pencils and spread them across the kitchen table, like treasure running his fingers over each one, before choosing careful and deliberate the way only a child who understands scarcity can be careful. Leo had started a new drawing, something big. Something he wouldn't let Alex see yet, covering it with his arm whenever his father walked past. "What is it?" Alex asked one night standing at the stove. "A secret," Leo said without looking up. "Since when do you keep secrets from me?" "Since I got good pencils." Alex laughed. It surprised him the way it came out full and genuine, the way laughter sometimes ambushes a person when they've gone too long without it. He stirred the pot and didn't push, and Leo kept drawing, and for a little while, the apartment felt like enough. That was the thing about their life. It was small. But it had weight to it, the good kind of weight, the kind that keeps you anchored when the wind picks up. The wind had been picking up for a while now. Bryce had written him up as promised. The write-up was technically a formal warning, which in the language of Mercer Industrial Supplies meant that one more offense, one more early departure, one more clocked-out minute that didn't line up exactly right, and Alex was done. He'd read the form signed. It folded it and put it in the drawer where he kept Leo's school records and the deed to the storage unit where his wife's things still sat 4 years later, because he hadn't been able to deal with it yet. He was behind on the storage unit rent too. 2 months. 3 by the end of January. He did the math in his head, the way he always did, lying in bed at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling, running numbers that never quite added up. Rent. Leo's school lunch account. The truck payment. The hospital bill from last spring when Leo had the ear infection that wouldn't quit. The storage unit. The gas. The groceries. $43. That was still the number that lived in his chest. Not because of that night on Route 9, but because it was the truest number he knew. The number that told him exactly where he stood. He was still standing. That was something. He'd always been good at standing. It was the second Tuesday in December when he first noticed the car. He wouldn't have thought anything of it. A dark blue sedan parked across from the apartment building. Nothing unusual about that on a residential street. But it was there when he came home from work at 5:45, and it was still there when he took the trash out at 8, and when he looked out the window at 11 p.m. before bed. The glow of a phone screen was just barely visible through the tinted glass. He filed it away, said nothing to Leo. The next morning, it was gone. But the day after that, it was back. Different spot down the block past the fire hydrant, but the same car. He knew cars. He'd been driving beaters his whole life and had learned to read makes and models the way other people read faces. Dark blue Honda Accord 2019 or 2020, no front plate. He watched it for 4 days before he did anything. On the 5th day, he walked straight toward it. He crossed the street at a diagonal, hands in his jacket pockets, not fast and not slow, just direct the way he moved when he'd already made a decision. He got to the driver's side and knocked on the window. A pause. Then the window went down. The driver was a woman. Late 20s, professional haircut, a tablet open in her lap, and a nearly empty coffee cup in the cup holder. She looked at him with the careful expression of someone who has been caught but has been trained not to show it. "Can I help you?" she said. Neutral. Practiced. "You've been parked here 4 days, Alex said, not accusing, stating. Public street." "Yes, it is." He looked at her. "Who are you working for?" A beat. Her fingers moved slightly on the tablet in her lap, not hitting a button, just a reflex. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Yes, you do." He kept his voice even. "I'm not angry. I just want to know who sent you." She looked at him for a long moment. Something in her calculation shifted. "I'm not at liberty to say." "Is it about my son?" "No." Fast. Definitive. The first real answer she'd given him. "Is it about the woman I pulled out of the car on Route 9 last month?" Her expression didn't change, but her fingers stopped moving. And in the silence that followed, Alex had his answer. "Tell whoever it is," he said quietly, "that I'm not interested in being watched. If they want to talk to me, they can knock on my door." He held her eyes. "Apartment 4B. He walked back across the street. He didn't look over his shoulder. The car was gone within the hour. The knock on his door came 6 days later. It was a Saturday morning. Leo was at a friend's house. His best friend Marcus, 2 buildings over, where they would spend the entire day eating cereal and arguing about video games and doing exactly nothing productive, which was Alex had long believed the entire point of being 11 years old. Alex had the apartment to himself, which meant he'd been doing what he always did with rare quiet time, fixing things. The cabinet hinge that had been loose for 3 months. The bathroom faucet that dripped every 30 seconds with a maddening regularity. He was on his knees under the kitchen sink with a wrench when someone knocked. He assumed it was Mrs. Kowalski from 4A who knocked whenever she needed a jar opened or a package carried in from downstairs. He wiped his hands on a dish towel and opened the door without thinking. It was Sam. She looked different. Of course she did. She wasn't pale, wasn't bloody, wasn't slumped sideways in a wrecked car. She was standing in his doorway, in dark jeans and a coat that Alex registered in some back part of his brain was the kind of coat that cost more than his rent. Her hair was clean and precise. The cut above her ear had healed to a faint pink line. She was holding a coffee, 1 cup, not 2, which told him she hadn't planned to stay. They stared at each other for a second. "You said knock on 4B, she said. "I did," he said. "So I knocked." He stepped back and opened the door wider. She hesitated just half a second, then walked in. He watched her take in the apartment the way he imagined she took in everything quickly, completely, without making it obvious. The clean counters. The drawing on the refrigerator that Leo had done last year of the 2 of them at a baseball game. The cabinet hinge sitting on the counter next to a small pile of screws. The dish towel he was still holding. "You want coffee?" he said. "I have coffee." "Right." He tossed the dish towel on the counter. "Then sit down if you want." She sat at the kitchen table. He sat across from her. She put her coffee cup down and looked at him, and for a moment neither of them said anything, not awkwardly, but the way 2 people who've already been through something together don't always need to fill the air. "The car outside," he said finally. "Was that yours?" "She works for me, yes." "Why?" Samantha looked at her coffee cup. It was the first time he'd seen her look anywhere other than directly at him, and it struck him as significant. "I wanted to make sure you were all right, after everything." "I'm all right." I know that now." She looked up again. "I also know about the write-up at work, the storage unit, the..." "Stop." His voice was calm, but there was a line in it. "Whatever your person told you about my finances, that's not a conversation we're having." She met his eyes. "I'm not trying to embarrass you." "I know, but I'm not a case study." "I know that too." A pause. "I just wanted to understand the person who stopped." "Why?" She didn't answer right away. And in that silence, Alex heard something he hadn't expected. Not calculation, not the careful management of a person used to managing everything. Something more honest than that. Like she was trying to find the right words for something that didn't have easy words. "Because people don't do that," she said finally. "Not in my world. People don't stop. They calculate. They weigh the cost. They check the liability." She said it without bitterness, just flatly the way you state a fact you've learned the hard way. "You had $43 and a sick kid at home, and you stayed 2 hours in a hospital waiting room for someone you didn't know. You checked my wallet." "Your account balance." "I didn't go through your wallet." A beat. "I apologize for the distinction." Alex looked at her. He should have been angry. Some part of him was a quiet, compressed anger, the kind he kept at a controlled temperature, because explosion had never gotten him anywhere. But the larger part of him was just curious. About who this woman was. About what she was looking for. About why she was sitting in his kitchen with expensive coffee and a healed cut above her ear, and this particular expression on her face that he could only describe as searching. "What's your last name, Sam?" he asked. She looked at him steadily. "Does it matter?" "Not yet," he said. "But I'm asking anyway." Another pause. Longer this time. "It's complicated." "Most things are?" She almost smiled. Not quite. "Hale," she said. "Samantha Hale." He didn't recognize the name. He would realize later that this was its own kind of revelation, that the name meant nothing to him, that her face meant nothing to him, that she could be anyone as far as he was concerned, and something about that had clearly undone her slightly in the best possible way. "I own a company," she said. "Several, actually." "What kind?" "Real estate, tech, some medical." She said it the way most people say they work in accounting. "It's a lot." "Okay." She watched him. "You're not going to look me up." "I'll probably look you up later," he said honestly. "Right now, I'm wondering why you're here in person instead of sending another check." "I didn't send a check." "The pencils." "That wasn't a check. It was something." She was quiet for a moment. "It was Leo," she said. "You mentioned him in the hospital. You said he had a fever, and you'd been there 2 hours and you had to get home. And the way you said his name..." She stopped, started again. "I wanted him to have something good." Alex looked at her. Something in his chest shifted, not softened exactly. More like acknowledged. Like a locked room where a sliver of light came under the door. "He loves them," Alex said. "He's been drawing every night." "What does he draw?" "Right now he won't show me. Says it's a secret." A beat. "He's never had a secret project before. He's usually the first one to show me everything." Samantha smiled, this time for real. It changed her face, made her younger, less contained. "That means it's important to him," she said. "That means he's working on something true." Alex studied her. "You know art. I know what it means to make something you're not ready for anyone else to see yet." There it was again, that thing underneath her voice, that layer. He filed it away. "Why are you really here, Samantha?" he asked. Not unkindly, directly. She picked up her coffee cup, set it down without drinking. I want to offer you something, and I need you to hear the whole thing before you say no. I'm already inclined to say no. I know. That's why I'm asking you to wait. He leaned back in his chair. Talk. She talked for almost 20 minutes. He listened the way he did everything, still focused without interrupting. She had a position open, she said. Not a charity. Not a favor dressed up in working clothes. A real position in the logistics and operations arm of one of her companies. Someone who could manage vendor relationships, coordinate supply chains, oversee a small team. Someone with practical experience, not an MBA. You were a logistics supervisor before the current job, she said. 3 years. Before that military supply chain, 8 years active service. She paused. You're overqualified for what you're doing now. The market didn't agree. The market didn't know you. He was quiet. She kept going. The position pays a salary, not a consulting fee, not a grant, a salary, full benefits. Leo goes on the insurance plan. You'd work remotely for the first 3 months, then you'd need to be in the Cincinnati office 3 days a week. There's a relocation allowance if you need it. She said the salary number. Alex didn't move. But something behind his eyes went very still. The stillness of a man doing math he hasn't let himself do in a long time. Why me? He said. I told you. Tell me again. She met his eyes. Because you stopped. Because you stayed. Because you didn't ask for anything, and you didn't make me feel like I owed you anything. And when I sent those pencils, you didn't call a lawyer or a newspaper. You just... She paused. You just let Leo have something nice. That's not a qualification. In my experience, it's the rarest one there is. He looked at her for a long time. Long enough that most people would have gotten uncomfortable. Samantha Hale, he was learning, was not most people. I'm not a project, he said. I know. And I don't want Leo to think his father needs rescuing. I know that too. She said it quietly, carefully. This isn't rescue, Alex. I don't actually believe in rescue. I believe in... She stopped, chose her word. Correction. Correcting things that shouldn't have been wrong in the first place. And what was wrong? You, she said plainly. In that job, doing that work, with that supervisor. A beat. That was wrong. Not tragic. Just wrong. And I have the ability to correct it. He was quiet for a moment. Outside in the hallway, someone walked past, heavy footsteps, muffled voice on a phone. The faucet in the bathroom dripped once, right on schedule. I need to think about it, he said. She nodded. She didn't push. She reached into her coat pocket and put a card on the table, plain white, just a phone number and her name in clean type. Take the time you need. She stood. I have one more thing to say. He looked up at her. I know I sent someone to watch you without asking. I know that was wrong, and I know you know why I did it, and I know neither of those things makes it right. She held his eyes. I'm sorry. He nodded once. Sit down, he said. She blinked. What? I said sit down. You didn't finish your coffee. A pause. She sat. He got up and refilled his own cup, and they sat at his kitchen table for another hour and a half, not talking about the job, not talking about money, not talking about Route 9. They talked about Leo. They talked about the logistics of raising a child alone, the particular terror of it, not the dramatic terror of emergencies, but the quiet daily terror of being the only one. They talked about art and what it does to a person, and why some people make things and some people don't. She was careful and precise with words, the way people are when they've been misunderstood before and don't intend to be again. He was careful too, but in a different way. He was careful the way a person is when they've been carrying so much for so long that they've forgotten what it feels like to set something down and they're not sure whether they should. When Leo came home at 2 in the afternoon, banging through the door with the energy of a kid who'd been cooped up all morning, he stopped dead at the sight of a stranger at the kitchen table. Leo, Alex said. This is Samantha. She's someone I helped a little while back. Leo looked at her with the frank, unfiltered assessment of an 11-year-old. Are you the one who sent the pencils? Samantha looked at him. Yes. Leo considered this. The 150-color set is very excessive, he said. But it's also the best thing I've ever owned. Samantha laughed a real laugh, full and surprised. That's exactly what I was going for. Leo nodded, apparently satisfied. He dropped his backpack, grabbed a juice box from the fridge, and disappeared down the hall without ceremony. Alex looked at Samantha. She was still smiling, that changed-face smile, younger, less controlled, and she was watching the hallway where Leo had gone, like she was seeing something she hadn't expected to see. He's something, she said. He is, Alex agreed. She stood to go. She buttoned her coat. She picked up her coffee cup, finished the last of it, and put it in the sink like she'd been doing it all her life. It was a small thing. It was oddly the most natural thing she'd done since she walked in. At the door, she paused. Alex? Yeah. Whatever you decide. She stopped. Seemed to choose the rest of the sentence carefully. I'm glad you stopped that night. He looked at her. Standing in his doorway, coat buttoned, controlled and precise, and underneath it all, something that had been alone for a very long time without naming it that way. Take care of yourself, Samantha, he said. She left. Alex stood at the closed door for a moment. Then he went to the kitchen table and picked up the card. He turned it over in his hands. He thought about the salary number. He thought about Leo's lunch account. He thought about the storage unit and his wife's things inside it, and the fact that he'd been paying to keep something he couldn't look at yet because closing it felt too much like finishing something. He thought about the way Samantha Hale had said correction, not rescue. The deliberateness of that word. The way a person chooses a word that deliberately. He set the card down. He went back under the kitchen sink with his wrench and finished fixing the faucet. But he left the card on the table. Leo found it that evening doing homework. Who's Samantha Hale? He asked, turning the card over in his fingers. Someone I'm thinking about working with, Alex said. Leo set it down. He pulled out his drawing, the secret one, and for the first time turned it so Alex could see. It was the two of them. Alex and Leo. Pencil on paper, but with color filling in behind them, a night road. A car in the distance, headlights cutting through the dark. And in the lights, just barely visible, a figure. Small, standing. Not in danger, not waving for help, just there, caught in the light as if someone had decided to stop and look. Alex stared at the drawing for a long time. When did you start this? He said. The night you came home late and made me soup, Leo said simply. He picked up a colored pencil, deep cobalt blue, one of the 150, and went back to work on the shadowed edges of the road. Alex sat very still at the table. He reached for his phone. He looked at the card. He looked at the drawing. He thought about $43 and a woman with blood on her face saying, "Don't tell them who I am," and he thought about the card sitting on the table and the open drawer where he kept the things that mattered. He did not call that night, but he put the card in the drawer. And in Alex Mercer's life, that drawer was the only place that counted. He called on a Monday. Not because he'd made a decision over the weekend. Not because he'd sat down with a yellow legal pad and made a pros and cons list, the way his late wife Claire used to do for every major choice, folding the paper precisely in half, writing in her clean schoolteacher print. He called because Leo had woken up Sunday morning and said without looking up from his cereal, "Dad, you should take the job." Just like that. Flat and certain, the way kids sometimes say the truest things without architecture, without softening, just the fact of it set down on the table next to the orange juice. What job? Alex said. The one from the lady with the pencils. Leo looked up. I heard you two talking. You were down the hall. The walls are thin, Dad. Alex had looked at his son for a long moment. This boy with Claire's eyes and a cobalt blue pencil tucked behind his ear and felt the particular helplessness of being seen clearly by someone who has every reason to see you that way. So Monday morning before work, standing in the parking lot of Mercer Industrial Supplies in the cold, with his jacket collar up, he called the number on the card. She picked up on the second ring. "I haven't decided," he said. "I just have questions." "Ask," she said. No preamble. He was learning that about her. She didn't waste words on the approach. They talked for 40 minutes. He asked about the team he'd be managing, the scope of the vendors, the reporting structure, whether remote really meant remote, or if it meant technically remote, but we expect you there. He asked about the benefits timeline, whether Leo's coverage would start immediately or after a waiting period. He asked what happened if it didn't work out, what the exit looked like, whether there would be something in writing that protected both of them. She answered every question directly. No hedging, no salesmanship. When he asked about the exit clause, she said, "I'll have legal draw up a mutual termination agreement. 3 months notice on either side, full severance on a prorated scale." Then she said, "That's actually a fair question. Most people don't ask it." "Most people are afraid it'll sound like they're planning to fail," Alex said. "And you're not. I'm planning to succeed, but I like knowing where the door is." A pause. Then, "I think that's the most I've liked you so far." He almost laughed. He held it. "I still haven't said yes." "I know. You'll call me back." She was right. He called her back Thursday afternoon from the break room, and this time he said yes. Short, clean, no ceremony. She said she'd have the paperwork ready by the following Tuesday. He said all right. She said one more thing before they hung up. Just 4 words, quiet and unguarded. "I'm glad, Alex. Really." He stood in the break room for a moment after phone in his hand, listening to the hum of the vending machine and the distant sound of Bryce's voice through the wall. Then he walked back to his desk and started writing his 2 weeks' notice. The first month was a recalibration. That was the word Alex kept coming back to, not adjustment, not transition, but recalibration. The slow, precise process of resetting an instrument that's been reading wrong for too long. He was good at the work. He'd always been good at this kind of work. The logistics mind, the ability to look at a supply chain like a diagram and see immediately where the pressure was building, where the seams were likely to split. The team he was managing, 6 people spread across 3 states, figured that out within the first 2 weeks. They stopped CCing him on things that didn't need his input and started calling him directly when something mattered, which was the correct order of operations, and which he'd had to teach the previous supervisor at Mercer Industrial Supplies about 17 times with diminishing returns. The work was good. That was the simple version. The complicated version was Samantha. She was his employer. That was the clear line. She was the woman who had written the check, not literally, but in every way that counted, and Alex Mercer understood hierarchies. He'd lived inside them for most of his adult life, military first, then corporate, and he knew how to read the structure and operate within it without confusion. She was above him in the organization. That was fact. The complicated part was that she called. Not about work, or not only about work. She'd call at 6 p.m. after Leo was doing homework, and they'd talk for 20 minutes about a vendor dispute in Memphis. And then somehow they'd still be talking at 7:30 about something else entirely, about a book she was reading about the way Ohio winters had a particular quality of gray that she'd never seen anywhere else, about something Leo had apparently mentioned in passing that she couldn't stop thinking about. "He said something to me last week," she said one evening. "When you stepped away from the table, he said, 'My dad never lets anyone help him, but I think he's tired.'" Alex was quiet. "He said it the way kids say things," Samantha continued. "Like he wasn't trying to say something heavy, like he was just telling me the weather." "He does that," Alex said. "Does he know he does it?" "No. That's what makes it accurate." She laughed softly. "Are you tired, Alex?" He looked at the ceiling of his living room. The crack that had been there since before he moved in, running from the light fixture toward the window like a fault line. "Yeah," he said. "I'm tired." "Is it better? It's better," he said. "Don't make me say it twice." "I won't." A pause. "Good." These conversations unsettled him in a way he couldn't quite organize. Not because they felt inappropriate, they didn't, not exactly. But because they felt like something that had its own gravity. Like a thing that was pulling in a direction, and he wasn't sure yet whether the direction was good, or whether he was just tired enough to let himself be pulled. He thought about Claire sometimes during these phone calls, not with guilt, or not only guilt, with something more like conversation, the internal kind. "She's interesting, Claire. She's not what I expected." He could hear Claire's voice saying, "You never know what to expect." "Alex, that's always been your problem." He'd smile into the dark of the living room and feel the loss of her like a weather change, present total, then slowly moving through. He had not been interested in anyone since Claire died. He'd told himself that was fine. He'd told himself it was a matter of timing, of priority, of Leo needing a steady father more than Alex needed anything else. And that was all true. It had all been true. But something was shifting. He could feel it, and he didn't entirely know what to do with it. So he did what he always did with things he didn't know what to do with yet. He put them in the drawer and kept working. It was a Wednesday in late January when things broke open. Leo had an early release from school, which meant he was home when Alex was still in a conference call, and which meant he was on his tablet browsing the internet with the particular aimlessness of a bored 11-year-old who had run out of things to draw and didn't feel like homework. Alex was in the bedroom with the door half-closed, headset on, walking a vendor in Nashville through a logistics discrepancy when he heard Leo go quiet in the other room. 11-year-olds are never quiet unless something has their complete attention. Alex knew this from years of field experience. He wrapped up the call faster than he intended, came out of the bedroom, and found Leo sitting cross-legged on the couch with his tablet on his knees, staring at the screen with an expression Alex could not immediately read. Not upset, not excited, something more complicated. The face of a child trying to organize information that doesn't fit the shape of what they already know. "What are you looking at?" Alex asked. Leo turned the tablet around. It was a Forbes article, 2 years old. The headline read, "America's Most Reclusive Billionaire, Inside the Empire of Samantha Hale." There was a photo Samantha in some formal setting. Darker suit, her face composed and distant, in the way that high-stakes photography made people look like they'd never once sat in someone's kitchen finishing a cold coffee. $11 billion. The article used that number in the second sentence. Underneath the article, Leo had also found a Business Insider piece and a Wall Street Journal profile, and a photograph from a charity gala in New York from 3 years ago in which Samantha was standing next to the kind of people whose names Alex recognized from the news. Alex sat down next to his son. He looked at the screen for a moment. "Did you know?" Leo asked. "Not at first," Alex said. "She told me her last name when she came here. I looked her up after." Leo processed this. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it didn't change anything." "It kind of changes things, Dad." "How?" Leo looked at him. "She's worth $11 billion, and she's been calling you every week." A pause. That's not nothing." "No," Alex said. "It's not nothing." "So why does she call?" Alex looked at his son. At the serious, careful face, Claire's eyes, his own jaw, the colored pencil still tucked behind his ear from this morning. He wanted to give Leo the simple version. He genuinely tried to locate the simple version. But Leo had always been the kind of kid who could tell when the simple version was leaving something out, and Alex had made a rule, early, a real rule, not a parenting cliché, but an actual operating principle, that he would not lie to his son, not even in the polite and well-intentioned ways that parents lie when they think they're protecting someone. "I think she's lonely," Alex said. I think she has more than she'll ever need of everything except the things that actually matter. And I think she met us, and something shifted for her. Leo was quiet for a moment. Do you like her? She's a good person. That's not what I asked. Alex looked at his son. You're 11. I'm 11 and I'm asking. A pause. Yeah, Alex said. I think I might. Leo nodded slowly, absorbing this. He looked back at the tablet. He looked at the photo of Samantha composed distant, expensive, and then he looked up at his father with the expression of a child who has already understood something the adults around him are still working out. Then why does she feel like a secret? He said. Alex didn't have an answer for that. He sat with it. He called her that evening later than usual after Leo was in bed. He didn't build up to it. He'd never been good at building up to things. Leo found the Forbes article, he said when she answered. A pause. Oh. He's fine. He's smart. He wanted to know why I hadn't told him. What did you say? I said it didn't change anything. A beat. He wasn't sure he agreed. She was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice had the particular quality of someone who has prepared themselves for a conversation and is now finding that the preparation isn't quite the shape of the real thing. Are you angry? No. Are you? Samantha. He let her name sit there for a second. I'm not angry. I just think we need to be honest about something. All right. I knew who you were before I accepted the job. I'm not naive. I knew the money. I knew the company. I knew the size of the gap between your world and mine. He paused. I took the job because it was a legitimate job and my son needed the insurance and I'm good at the work. That's still true. I know. But these calls... He stopped. Started again. These calls are something else. And I think you know that. Silence on her end. Not the silence of someone caught, but the silence of someone standing at the edge of something and deciding whether to step. Yes, she said. I know that. So what is it? He said. Because I need to understand what I'm standing in, Samantha. I don't do well with things I can't name. A long pause. He could hear her breathing. He waited because he had learned that she needed a moment when something was true, and she wasn't sure yet how true she was willing to let it be. I grew up in rooms where everyone wanted something from me, she said finally. Or from my father, or from the money, or from the connections, or from whatever I happened to be worth that quarter. And I got very good at... She stopped. At making sure people got what they wanted, so they'd leave me alone. A beat. That sounds worse than I mean it. It doesn't sound bad, he said. It sounds exhausting. It was. Another pause. And then I woke up in a ditch on Route 9, and there was a man in a flannel jacket holding a gas station receipt against my head, and he had $43 and a sick kid at home, and he... Her voice changed slightly, just slightly. He didn't want anything. He was just there. He was just there because it was right. Alex didn't say anything. I know what that makes me sound like, she said. I know it sounds like I'm a damaged rich woman who latched onto the first genuine human being she encountered and built a narrative around it. Does it feel like a narrative? A pause. No. Then it's not. Simple. Firm. She was quiet for a moment. I should have told you who I was immediately. You were in a wrecked car with a head injury. After. I should have told you when I came to the apartment, before the job. Probably, he said. I was afraid you'd say no. To the job. A beat. To all of it. He sat with that. The apartment was quiet. The good quiet, the quiet that came when Leo was asleep, and the city outside had turned down its volume, and the only sound was the refrigerator hum and the occasional creak of the building settling into itself. He sat in that quiet with the phone against his ear, and thought about $43, and a woman in a hospital gown sitting up straight, and a card in a drawer, and a drawing of a dark road with headlights cutting through. "I need to tell you something," he said. "And I need you to hear it without making it a big thing. All right? I'm not afraid of who you are. I'm not intimidated by the money or the company or the Forbes cover. That's not the shape of me." A pause. "But I need you to be straight with me, always. Even when you think the truth is going to cost you something. Because that's the only way I know how to do this, whatever this is." "I know," she said. "Do you, Alex?" Her voice was quiet, serious. "I drove 4 states to knock on your door because you told me to, and because I didn't know how to not come. I'm not good at a lot of things that matter, but I understand what you're asking me. And yes, I hear you." He exhaled slowly. "Okay. Okay. Okay." He let the words settle. "Now tell me about what's happening with the Memphis vendor situation, because I looked at the numbers today, and something's wrong with the inventory reconciliation." She made a sound, half laugh, half exhale, like air leaving something that had been held too tight. "You're unbelievable. I'm practical. You're—" She stopped. He could hear the smile in it. "Yes, the Memphis situation. So the third-party verification system flagged a—" They talked for another hour, about work, about real things, and underneath the real things, quietly, and without ceremony, something else was being built, not quickly, not dramatically, but with the particular steadiness of 2 people who have both learned the hard way what happens when you build on sand. February came with ice on the roads and Leo getting picked for the district art showcase, which meant Alex stood in a school gymnasium on a Thursday evening, surrounded by other parents, and looked at his son's drawing on a white wall under a proper spotlight. The drawing of the night road, the headlights, the figure caught in the light, and felt something that was almost too large to hold in his chest. A woman standing next to him said, "Is that yours?" Meaning, is that your child's work? "Yes," Alex said. "It's remarkable," she said. "The way the light works. The figure. It feels like the person in the light is the important one, not the one in the car." Alex looked at the drawing. He thought about Route 9. He thought about a woman with blood on her face saying, "Don't tell them who I am." He thought about the way things looked different depending on where you were standing. "You might be right," he said. He took a photo of the drawing and sent it to Samantha without a message. Just the photo. She responded in 30 seconds with a single line. "He sees things clearly." Alex looked at the message. He thought about Leo asking why she felt like a secret. He thought about the answer he hadn't been able to find at the time, and he thought maybe he was starting to find it now, not as an answer, but as a direction. A heading. The kind you set when you don't have coordinates yet, but you know which way the light is coming from. He put his phone in his pocket and went to find his son. Leo was standing near his drawing, talking to his art teacher, gesturing at something in the upper right corner of the image, with the particular intensity of a kid explaining something important. He looked up when Alex got close, and his face did the thing it did, that quick, unguarded brightness. The look that said, "There's my dad," without any of the complicated emotional baggage that look sometimes acquired as kids got older. It was still clean, still simple, still the best thing Alex knew. "She texted," Leo said. "How do you know?" "You have the phone in pocket face." Alex looked at him. "The what?" "The face you make when you get a good text, but you don't want to make it a thing." Leo's expression was perfectly neutral. "Mom used to say you were the least subtle person she knew." Alex laughed. It was sharp and real, and it surprised him, not the laugh itself, but the way it felt alongside the loss of her, the way grief and joy could occupy the same breath in a person without canceling each other out. He had learned that. 4 years had taught him that. "She said your drawing was remarkable," Alex said. Leo looked back at his drawing, considered it. "I know," he said simply. Not arrogance, just the clarity of a kid who knew what he'd made. They stood there together for a moment, the two of them looking at the night road, and the headlights, and the figure in the light. Alex put his hand on Leo's shoulder. Leo leaned into it slightly, just slightly, the way kids do, when they're almost too old for it, but not quite, and they're doing it before they lose the chance. Neither of them said anything. They didn't need to. What neither of them knew what Alex had not yet allowed himself to know, though the shape of it was becoming impossible to ignore, was that Samantha Hale was not just calling because she was lonely, and not just because Alex was genuine, and not just because Leo's drawing had undone her in ways she hadn't prepared for. She was calling because for the first time in 11 years since her father had died, and left her an empire she'd never asked for, and a loneliness she'd never named, she had felt something she didn't have a word for in any of the boardrooms or balance sheets or buildings with her family name on the door. She felt like someone might actually stop. Stop for her, not for the money, not for the name, not for what she was worth on a balance sheet. Just stop. And she was terrified, the kind of terrified that lives right next to the thing you want most, because she had never once in all of it let herself be that simple. The secret she was carrying was not just her name, and it was coming undone. The secret came out on a Thursday. Not dramatically, not the way secrets explode in movies with raised voices and doors slamming and someone standing in the rain. It came out the way most real things come out quietly and too fast in the middle of an ordinary moment that wasn't prepared for it. It was the second week of March. Alex had driven to Cincinnati for his first in-person week at the office, 3 days as agreed, and Samantha had arranged for him to use a company apartment near the building, a furnished place on the 4th floor that was nicer than any place Alex had ever slept in, and which he spent his first night in, feeling vaguely like a guest in a museum. Leo was with Marcus's family, which Marcus's mother had offered without being asked, because she was that kind of woman. The kind who saw what was needed and moved toward it without ceremony. Alex had kissed his son's head Tuesday morning and driven the 2 hours south with a duffel bag and a folder of onboarding documents, and the specific quiet of a man who is trying not to think too carefully about what he's walking into. The work itself was clean. The Cincinnati office was smaller than he'd expected. 20 people open floor plan, the kind of place that had a coffee bar and plants that were actually alive, which in Alex's experience was a reliable signal that someone senior actually paid attention. His team received him well. There was a woman named Daria who ran the vendor compliance side and who had the organized efficiency of someone who'd been doing a 2-person job alone for 18 months and was visibly relieved to have a second person who understood the architecture. There was a man named Curtis who was younger, sharp, slightly too eager in the way young people are when they respect someone and don't know how to wear it yet. Alex liked both of them immediately and said very little about it, which was his way. Samantha was in the building. He knew this without being told. He could feel the particular pressure of it, the way people moved slightly differently when she was on the floor. Not nervously, but alertly, the way a room adjusts when someone who matters is present. She didn't come to his team's area. He didn't go looking for her. They had an agreement without ever stating it. The office was the office. The phone calls were something else. On Wednesday evening, she texted, "Dinner. There's a place 2 blocks east. Good food, no one who knows me." He looked at the message for a minute, then 6:30. The restaurant was a corner Italian place, old school, the kind with checkered tablecloths and bread that came automatically, and a waiter named Don, who had clearly been there since the Carter administration. Samantha was already there when he arrived in a booth in the back, her coat over the seat beside her, a glass of water in front of her. She was in dark clothes, no jewelry. He could see her hair loose in a way he hadn't seen before. She looked different outside the context of phone calls and boardrooms, and his kitchen table, more present somehow, like a word you've only ever heard spoken, suddenly appearing in print. "You look tired," she said when he sat down. "I'm fine." "You look good tired," she said. Then she looked at her water glass, and he could tell she hadn't meant to say it quite that directly, and she had decided to let it stand anyway. He picked up the menu. "How's the chicken?" "I don't know. I've never had the chicken." "What do you get?" "The bolognese." "Is it good?" "It's the only thing in this city that tastes like something real to me." He looked at her over the menu. She was looking back, steady and slightly guarded, the way she always was. That watchfulness that he'd learned wasn't coldness, was in fact the opposite of coldness, was the very careful management of a person who felt things very specifically and had learned early that feeling things specifically in public was dangerous. "Bolognese, then," he said. They ate and talked, and it was easy in the way their phone calls were easy, the back and forth of two people who had found a rhythm, who could move between the practical and the personal, without the gear-grinding awkwardness of people still learning each other's shape. She told him something about the Memphis vendor that she'd been holding back because she wanted to see if he found it himself he had that afternoon, which she called confirmation of something she'd already believed. He told her about Daria and Curtis, about the shape of the team, about the one process gap that he'd already identified and was going to bring to her Friday. She listened the way she always did, fully, without the half-listening of someone waiting for their turn to talk. It was over coffee that it happened. Don had brought the cups and disappeared with the quiet professionalism of a man who understood when a table needed to be left alone, and Samantha had her hands around her cup and was looking at him with that slight, private smile she got when something had landed. Well, when she said, "I want to tell you something." "All right," he said. "There's a property." She paused. "In Millbrook. I bought it about 8 months ago." He was still. "What kind of property?" "Commercial, technically. It was listed as a storage facility." She set her cup down. "It's on Prentice Street. Do you know it?" He knew it. He knew it the way you know the name of a place you've driven past 100 times without stopping the name embedded in the local geography of your life. But his expression had already shifted, and she saw it, and she kept going, not looking away. "I bought it because it was across from the elementary school," she said. "There was a proposal, a developer wanted to put a distribution hub there. It would have changed the traffic pattern around the school drop-off zone. I had someone look into it, and the safety assessment was..." She stopped. "It was bad, so I bought it before the developer could." "When was this?" Alex said. Quiet. Even. "October. About 3 weeks after the hospital." He looked at her. He was doing the math, could see her doing it too. Watching him do it, her fingers still on her coffee cup. "Leo's school is 2 blocks from Prentice," he said. "I know." "Sam." "I know." She held his eyes. "I need you to hear the whole thing." "Keep going," he said. Same voice, same temperature. "I wasn't..." She stopped, started again carefully. "I wasn't trying to insert myself into your life without you knowing. I want you to believe that even if you don't right now. The property was a real concern and the action was legitimate. But I also..." She took a breath. "I also knew it was near you, near Leo. And I knew when I made the decision that it wasn't entirely separate from that." He was quiet for a long moment. Dawn passed by at a distance, read the table, correctly kept moving. "What else?" Alex said. She looked at him. "What else is there that I don't know about?" he said. Not an accusation, a request. Clean and direct the way he asked everything. A pause. Longer than the others. He waited. "The storage unit on Route 11, she said. "The one where you keep Claire's things." It was 2 months behind. Something shifted in his face. Not visible to most people. Visible to her because she'd been learning to read him for months. "I paid it current," she said. 6 months forward. Under a service account so it wouldn't show your name. I told myself it was..." She stopped. "I had a reason I told myself, but I don't think the reason matters as much as the fact that I did it without telling you." Alex said nothing. He was looking at the table. She watched the line of his jaw set. "Alex." He looked up. I'm telling you now, she said. I'm telling you all of it. Everything. That's what this is. Her voice was steady, but underneath it was the very specific vulnerability of someone who has decided to stop managing the distance and does not know what will happen next. I know how it looks. I know it looks like I've been arranging things, he said. Yes. Without asking. Yes. He leaned back in the booth. He looked at her, really looked the way he had in the hospital room that first night. That inventory-taking look that wasn't rude, was just honest. She sat still under it. Why didn't you tell me? He said. The property, the storage unit, any of it. Why do it quietly? She was honest. He'd asked her to always be honest, and she was. Because I was afraid of how you'd look at me, she said. I was afraid you'd look at me exactly the way you're looking at me right now. And how am I looking at you? Like I took something from you, she said. Like I reached into your life and moved things without permission. Did you? She was quiet. Did you, Samantha? I told myself the intentions were. I'm not asking about your intentions. His voice was still even, still controlled, but there was something in it now. Not anger, or not only anger, but something more fundamental. The voice of a man who has protected his own dignity through things that would have broken other people, and who will not have it managed without his knowledge. I'm asking what you did. Yes, she said. I moved things without permission. I made decisions that affected you and Leo, and I made them alone because I could. And I told myself it was care, and some of it was care, but some of it was... She stopped. Say it, he said. Control. The word came out small and precise. Some of it was control, because control is the only language I've spoken fluently for 11 years, and I didn't know how to just ask. I didn't know how to come to you and say, I want to help you. I want to make things easier. I want to... She stopped again. Her jaw tightened. He could see her doing what she always did, pulling back, composing, managing. He watched her do it, and then watched her decide not to. I wanted to matter, she said. To you, to Leo, without it being about the money, without it being about the job or the salary or what I could arrange. I wanted to matter in the small ways that count, and I went about it in the exact wrong way. And I'm telling you now because you asked me to always tell you the truth. And this is the truth. And I would rather lose. Her voice caught just once. I would rather lose this than lie to you. The restaurant was quiet around them. Somewhere near the front, a couple was laughing at something. Dawn was refilling someone's coffee. The ordinary world conducting its ordinary business, while something irreversible happened in a corner booth. Alex sat forward. He put both elbows on the table. He looked at her. The storage unit, he said. Claire's things. Yes. You paid it without asking me. Yes. That's... He stopped. He looked away just for a moment at the wall at nothing. She watched him and did not fill the silence. That's the one that gets me, he said finally. His voice was different now, lower the control of it, less about anger and more about something that was threatening to be too large for the room. Not the property, not the job even, that. He looked back at her. Because that's not business, that's not logistics, that's Claire. He said his wife's name like a single careful step. That's 4 years of me not being able to open that door and you reaching in and... He stopped. I know, she said very quietly. You don't know, he said. You can't know what it is to have the one place where you're still failing her, protected by someone who never met her. Someone who... He stopped again. She could see it happening, the way grief and anger, and something more confused were all arriving at the same door at once, and he was managing the traffic with everything he had. Why that, he said. Out of everything. She looked at him. Her hands were flat on the table. Because you told me about her, she said. You didn't mean to. It came out once on the phone when you were tired, You said, "I keep paying for a door I can't open." Just like that. And then you moved on and talked about something else, and I don't think you remembered saying it. A pause. I did. He was still. I wasn't trying to fix it, she said. I know it can't be fixed. I didn't want you to lose the door before you were ready to open it. Something in Alex Mercer's face changed. It wasn't visible the way movie emotions are visible. It wasn't a crumbling, wasn't a breaking down. It was more like the way a very tightly held thing releases a single degree of tension. The way a man who has been standing very straight for a very long time allows his shoulders to drop exactly 1 inch. He looked at her for a long time. I'm angry, he said finally. I know. About the not telling me. All of it. The watching the property, the all of it. Yes. That doesn't go away because your reason was good. I know that. I'm not asking it to. And I need to think, he said, about what this is. About whether I can do this job, whether I can... He stopped. Whether I can separate what I'm feeling from what I need to do. Take the time you need, she said. Exactly what she'd said about the job months ago. He heard the echo of it. He thought she heard it too. He stood. He put money on the table. She opened her mouth and he looked at her, and she closed it again. He put on his jacket. Alex, she said. He paused. I'm sorry. 2 words. No architecture around them. Just the words standing alone, which was the only way they ever really meant anything. He looked at her. He nodded once. He left. He walked back to the company apartment and stood at the window for a long time. He thought about the storage unit. He thought about Claire. Not the grief thought, the daily managed version, but the real one. The full-color memory of her, the legal pad folded in half. The clean school teacher's print. The voice that said, "You never know what to expect, Alex." He thought about 4 years of paying a monthly fee for the privilege of not going inside, of keeping the door between himself and the finality of it. And he thought about Samantha knowing that and choosing not to let the door close. He did not call Leo. It was past 9. He texted, "You good 3 dots?" "Yeah. Marcus's mom made lasagna. Are you okay?" Alex looked at the message. His 11-year-old asking if he was okay at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. "I'm good, buddy. Sleep well?" He stood at the window until midnight. He went into the office Thursday morning. He ran his team meeting. He talked to Daria about the vendor compliance update and to Curtis about a process mapping issue that needed 3 hours of focused attention. He was present, professional, and gave nothing away, which was a skill he'd developed in the military and never stopped needing. At noon, Samantha appeared at his team's area for the first time. She stood at the edge of it, not entering, and said, "Do you have 5 minutes?" "Yes," he said. They went to a small conference room down the hall, glass walls visible to the floor. She had clearly chosen it deliberately. No closed doors. She sat. He sat. "I've been thinking about what you said," he started. "I've been thinking about what I said," she said simultaneously. They stopped. "You go," he said. She leaned forward, her arms on the table. "I spent this morning asking myself something. I asked myself if the positions were reversed, if you knew something about my life that I couldn't face, and you quietly made sure I didn't lose it, would I want you to tell me?" A pause. "And the answer is yes. I would. Because knowing that someone did something like that without telling me would take something I didn't know I needed." She looked at him. "That's not a justification. That's me trying to understand what I took from you." "Dignity," he said. Simply. "Yes." Not the thing itself, the knowing about it. He paused. "The chance to decide." "Yes." He was quiet for a moment. "My father used to say..." He stopped, almost didn't continue. Then, he said, "The worst kind of help is the kind that makes you invisible. Where someone steps in and does the thing, and you become the problem that got solved. She didn't look away. I made you that. For a minute. I'm sorry, Alex. I know you are. He looked at her across the table. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm not walking away from the job. The job is good, and I'm good at it, and Leo is on the insurance, and that's clean. That's separate from everything else. All right. And I'm not... He paused. I'm not ending whatever this is. Whatever we've been building on those phone calls and at that table in my kitchen. She was still. But I need you to promise me something, he said. Not a professional promise. Not a contractual thing. A real one between two people. Name it, she said. You come to me first, he said. Before you fix anything. Before you arrange anything. You come to me first and you ask. Even if you think the answer is no. Even if you think I'm too proud to accept it. He held her eyes. You ask. She looked at him for a long moment. What if you say no and I disagree with you? Then we argue about it like two adults until we figure it out. And if we can't figure it out, then we'll know something important, he said. She considered this. He could see it happening, the weighing, the careful measurement of what she was being asked to give up, and what she was being asked to receive in exchange. He waited. Okay, she said. That's it. Just okay. You said you don't need me to say it twice, she said. He looked at her. Something eased in him, not all the way, not instantly, but the beginning of it, the first movement of something that had been locked. There's one more thing, he said. All right. The storage unit. He said it steadily. I'm going to go. Not now when I'm ready, but I'm going to go. He paused. And when I do, I want you to know that you made it possible. Not by paying the bill. By... He stopped. Found the words. By caring about a door you'd never seen for a woman you'd never met, because you heard me say one true thing at midnight when I was tired. He looked at her. That's not nothing. I want you to know I know that. Her throat moved. She nodded. She didn't trust her voice right then, which was fine. She didn't need to use it. He drove home to Millbrook Friday evening. Leo was asleep when he got in. It was late past 11, and Marcus's mother had clearly run him ragged in the good way, because he was fully horizontal with one arm off the bed, and the cobalt blue pencil still in his hand, which meant he'd fallen asleep drawing. Alex stood in the doorway of his son's room for a long moment, just stood there in the dark, listening to his kid breathe. He thought about Samantha. He thought about the conference room and the glass walls, and her saying, I would rather lose this than lie to you. He thought about a Forbes cover and a drawing of a night road and $43 and a door he'd been paying to keep closed. He went to the kitchen drawer. He didn't open the storage unit that night, but he moved Claire's photo from the back of the drawer to the front. He looked at it, her face, her smile the summer they'd gone to the lake the year before Leo was born, the picture he'd taken because she was laughing at something he'd said, and he'd needed to capture it before it was gone. I'm figuring it out, he said to the photo, out loud, quiet in his kitchen at midnight. I think you'd like her, actually. She's nothing like you. But she's real. Under all of it, she's real. He put the photo back in the front of the drawer. He went to bed. The call came at 6 a.m. on a Sunday. He was already awake. He was always awake before Leo, sitting at the kitchen table with coffee, when his phone lit up with a number he didn't recognize. He answered it because he always answered numbers he didn't recognize. That was the shape of him, always open to the thing that might be coming. It was not a number he recognized because it was a hospital number, and he had no way of knowing that yet. But the voice on the line was one he knew immediately. Young. Trying hard to be steady, losing that battle. Alex, Leo said. Dad, I think something's wrong with me. He was already standing, already moving toward the hallway. Where are you? Marcus's bathroom. I was going to tell you I had a headache, but it got... Leo's voice broke just slightly, the single fracture line in an 11-year-old trying to be older than he was. It got really bad. My head. And I threw up and Marcus's mom called. I'm on my way, Alex said. No other words. He was already dressed from yesterday, already had his keys. I'm 10 minutes away, Leo. I'm coming. Okay. A small voice. The smallest voice. Hey. Alex was at the door. He stopped for just a second. You called me. Yeah, Leo said. That's right. That's exactly right. I'm on my way. He ran. The emergency room at Millbrook General was the same as Alex remembered it. Same industrial cleaner smell. Same burnt coffee. Same Patrice at the front desk reading glasses on her beaded chain, who looked up when he came through the doors at 6:22 a.m., moving fast with his jacket half on, and said without him having to say a word. They brought a boy in. Dark hair 11. They're with him now. That's my son, Alex said. Room 3, she said. Go. Marcus's mother, a solid, capable woman named Diane, who Alex had always liked precisely because she never performed calm, she just had. It was standing outside room 3, with her arms crossed and her face arranged in the careful expression of someone who has already spoken to a doctor and is holding the information until the right person arrives. He's awake, she said immediately, because she understood what Alex needed first. He's talking. His vitals are stable. What happened? Headache woke him up around 5. He didn't want to wake anyone, you know how he is. She paused, and in that pause, Alex heard 11 years of his son trying not to be a burden compressed into a single breath. By 6, it was severe enough that he was sick. I called the ambulance and called you at the same time. Thank you, Diane. Go see your boy, she said. Leo was sitting up in the hospital bed, which was the first thing Alex registered, and it released something in his chest that had been locked at maximum tension since the phone call. Sitting up. Pale, yes, pale in the way that scared Alex more than crying would have, because Leo did not scare easily. An IV in his arm. A nurse finishing something at the monitor near the wall. But sitting up with his eyes open, and when Alex came through the door, those eyes found him immediately, and Leo said, I didn't want to call too early. Alex crossed the room and put his hand on the side of his son's face. Not a hug, not yet just his hand on Leo's jaw. The contact that meant, I am here. I am here. I am here. You called exactly right, Alex said. My head still hurts. I know. The doctor's going to fix that. Is it bad? Alex looked at him steadily. I don't know yet, but I'm not going anywhere until I do, and neither are you. The doctor came in 20 minutes later. A neurologist named Reeves 40ish, who had the manner of someone who delivered difficult information frequently and had learned to do it with precision rather than softness, which Alex respected. The initial assessment, Reeves said, pointed to a cerebral arteriovenous malformation, an AVM, a tangle of blood vessels in the brain that had likely been present since birth and had now reached a point where it was causing symptoms. Not a tumor, not cancer, but something that needed imaging, needed evaluation, and depending on what the imaging showed, needed surgery. How serious? Alex said. The range is wide until we have the full picture, Reeves said. But I want to be straight with you. If the imaging confirms what I'm seeing, clinically, this is not a wait-and-see situation. This is a we-need-to-move situation. Alex stood very still. He looked at the doctor. He thought about Claire, who had also had a doctor deliver information in careful clinical language, while Alex stood very still and tried to hold the world together with posture alone. He had failed that time, not the holding, but the hoping, which was different. He had hoped all the way to the end, and it had not been enough. He was not going to fail this time. What do you need from me? He said. Right now, consent for the CT and MRI, and then we wait for the images. You have it, Alex said. Do whatever you need to do. He stepped into the hallway while they prepped Leo for imaging. He stood against the wall with his phone in his hand for a long moment. He thought about who to call. He thought about the short list of people in his life, Diane already here, his brother in Phoenix, who would want to know, but who was a 4-hour flight away and couldn't do anything from there. Marcus's family, the small good circle of a man who had spent years being enough for himself and his son. He called Samantha. He didn't plan to, or he hadn't planned to standing there in the hallway. But his thumb found her name and the phone was ringing before he'd consciously decided, which told him something about what she'd become in the architecture of his life, without him fully marking the moment it happened. She picked up on the first ring. It was not yet 7 in the morning. "Alex?" Not a question. She heard it in his voice before he said a word. "It's Leo," he said. "He's at Millbrook General. They think it's a brain AVM. They're doing imaging now." He said it the way he said everything clean, no extra weight, just the facts in order. But she knew him well enough by now to hear what lived underneath the facts. "I'm coming," she said. "You don't have to. Alex." Her voice was quiet and absolute. "I'm coming." He didn't argue. He said, "Okay." And the word cost him nothing, which surprised him and told him more than the phone call itself. The imaging took 2 hours. Alex sat in the waiting room and did not look at his phone and did not read the magazines on the table next to him and did not do anything except sit. The way soldiers sit when they're waiting for an outcome they can't control, present still spending no energy on anything that wasn't the moment directly in front of him. Patrice brought him coffee at some point. She set it on the table next to him without a word. He looked up and nodded, and she patted his shoulder once and walked away, and it was possibly the kindest thing anyone had done for him that morning. Samantha arrived at 8:47. He knew it was her before he saw her, because the doors opened with a particular automatic hiss, and he felt, rather than heard, the change in the room, the slight recalibration of attention the way a person with a certain kind of presence affects a space without intending to. She came straight to him. Dark coat, no makeup, her hair still not entirely composed, which meant she'd driven here from wherever she'd been without stopping for any of the things she normally deployed between herself and the world. She sat down next to him. Not across from him. Next to him. She didn't ask how he was doing. She didn't fill the air. She just sat down next to him and said, "What do we know?" He told her. She listened. She asked 2 precise, intelligent questions about the imaging protocol, and he answered them, and then they sat together in the waiting room of Millbrook General and waited, and it was the most natural thing he could imagine, and also one of the hardest, because letting someone sit beside you in the worst moments was a different kind of trust than any other. When Dr. Reeves came out, he looked at Alex, and then at Samantha and said, "Family." Alex looked at Samantha. She looked at him. "Yes," Alex said. The AVM was confirmed. Medium-grade Reeves said not the worst category, but in a location that made watchful waiting inadvisable. Surgery was the recommended course. The best option, he said carefully, was a specialized center. He named a hospital in Cincinnati, the Neurosurgical Center. They're a team that had done more AVM procedures than any other program in the region. "When?" Alex said. "The sooner the better. I'd want him transferred within the week." "What's the cost situation?" Alex said. It cost him something to say it in front of Reeves, in front of Samantha, in front of the bare morning fluorescence of the waiting room. But Leo was in that imaging bay, and there was no room for pride to take up space that information needed. Reeves glanced at his clipboard. "Depending on your insurance, the surgical fees alone." "His insurance covers neurosurgical procedures," Samantha said. She said it the way she said business facts clearly, without emphasis as information rather than intervention. "I can have our benefits coordinator confirm the specifics within the hour. What we need to know right now is the transfer process and the surgical timeline." Reeves looked at her, looked at Alex. Alex nodded. They talked for 20 more minutes. When Reeves left, Alex sat back down and stared at the floor. Samantha sat beside him and said nothing. After a while he said, "I heard you." "What?" "What you said, about the insurance." He looked at her. "You said his insurance, Leo's insurance. You said it like—" He stopped. "Like it was already yours, too." She looked at him for a moment. "Is that all right?" He thought about the drawer in his kitchen. Claire's photo moved to the front. The door he'd been paying to keep closed. The colored pencils spread across a table like 150 small permissions to feel something good. "Yeah," he said. "It's all right." Leo came out of imaging and saw both of them sitting there side by side in the waiting room, and said with 11-year-old frankness, "You called her?" "I did," Alex said. Leo looked at Samantha. "He never calls anybody." "I know," Samantha said. "That's how I knew it was serious." Leo considered this. "Am I going to be okay?" Alex and Samantha looked at each other. In that look and the half-second of it was a full conversation about what to say about how much truth about the agreement between two people who had both decided that honesty was the only currency worth spending. "You're going to have surgery," Alex said, "and you're going to be scared and I'm going to be scared and we're going to do it anyway because that's what we do." Leo was quiet for a moment. He looked at the IV in his arm. He looked at his father. He looked at Samantha. "Will you both be there?" he said. When I wake up." "Yes," Alex said. "Yes," Samantha said. "Immediately." No pause. Leo nodded slowly. He reached over to the small table beside the bed and picked up the stub of a pencil that had been in his jacket pocket, always a pencil, always somewhere on his person, and held it in his fingers, the way another kid might hold a lucky stone. "Okay," he said. "Okay." The surgery was 6 days later at the Cincinnati Neurosurgical Center. Alex drove Leo down on a Tuesday morning. Leo in the passenger seat with his sketchbook open on his knee, even though he wasn't drawing, just holding it the way you hold something familiar when the world is being unfamiliar. They listened to the radio, and Alex did not talk much, which was correct, because Leo did not need words that morning. He needed the silence of someone who was not afraid to be present in a hard thing. Samantha met them at the hospital. She did not make an entrance. She was simply there standing near the surgical intake desk in the dark coat holding 2 coffees, and when Alex saw her, he felt the specific relief of a person who had doubted whether they were truly not alone and is now receiving confirmation. She handed him the coffee. She put her hand briefly on Leo's shoulder. "You ready?" she said. "Not really," Leo said. "Good answer," she said. "Honest is better than ready." Leo looked at her. He nodded once, his father's nod precise and clean, and then walked toward the intake desk sketchbook under his arm pencil behind his ear, 11 years old and walking toward the hardest thing he'd ever faced with the posture of someone who had been raised to face things. Alex watched him go. He felt Samantha step beside him, not touching, just present. "He's going to be all right," she said. "You don't know that," he said. "No," she agreed. "But I believe it. There's a difference." He looked at her. He thought about believing things. He thought about what it had taken him to believe slowly and carefully that this woman standing beside him was what she appeared to be, not a rescue operation, not a complicated power dynamic, not a story he was telling himself because he was tired. Just a person. A real one under all of it. The most unexpected real person he had ever met. "Thank you for being here," he said. "There is nowhere else," she said simply. The surgery took 4 hours and 11 minutes. Alex sat in the surgical waiting room, and Samantha sat beside him, and Diane came at noon with sandwiches that none of them ate, and Marcus sent Leo a voice message that Alex promised to play for him when he woke up. A rambling 2-minute thing about video games and the school project Leo was missing, and how Marcus was taking notes for him, which was possibly the greatest act of friendship Alex had ever witnessed in his life. They sat, and they waited. Alex told Samantha about Claire, really told her not the managed version, but the actual version. The whole weight of it. The legal pad folded in half, the school teacher's print, the lake and the photograph, and the 4 years of the storage unit. He told it quietly without drama, because he was a man who had earned the right to carry something that heavily and set it down that gently. Samantha listened. She did not fill the pauses. When he finished, she said, "She sounds like someone who knew what she had." "She did," he said. "She always did." "Leo has her eyes," Samantha said. "I saw it the first time I met him. The way they look at you like they've already decided you're worth the attention." He looked at Samantha. "Yeah," he said quiet. "She looked at me like that too." They sat with that for a while. It was not uncomfortable. It was two people in a waiting room with their whole lives arranged honestly between them, and the honesty making more room than the walls. Dr. Reeves appeared at 3:19 p.m. He was smiling before he reached them. Not the careful professional management smile, but the real one, the involuntary kind. "He's out," he said. "Surgery went very well. Full resection, clean margins, no complications. He's in recovery. He'll be asking for his sketchbook within the hour if I know anything about this kid." Alex stood. He put his hand out and shook Reeves's hand and said, "Thank you." And those two words had more inside them than most people put into a speech. He turned. Samantha was standing. Her eyes were bright. She was not crying, but she was close that precise line just before, and she was not managing it away. She was just letting it be there, which was something new for her, and they both knew it. He put his arms around her. It was not a complicated thing. It was simply two people who had been through something together, and were on the other side of it, and needed a moment in which the distance between them was not useful anymore. She put her arms around him, and held on, and he held on back. And outside the window, the Cincinnati afternoon was doing whatever it was doing, going about its ordinary business, entirely unaware. Leo woke up at 4 p.m. and asked for his sketchbook. Alex laughed, a real one, unguarded, the kind that had been building for 6 days, waiting for a place to land. He got the sketchbook from the bag and put it in Leo's hands, and Leo held it against his chest without opening it and looked at the ceiling with the peaceful expression of a person taking inventory of themselves and finding the important things still there. "Is Samantha here?" he said. "She's in the hall," Alex said. "Giving us a minute." Leo nodded. "Tell her she can come in." "You sure?" Leo looked at his father. The eyes that were Claire's clear, decided, seeing straight through. "Dad," he said. "She drove 4 hours and sat in a waiting room all day because she wanted to, not because anyone made her." He paused. "Let her come in." Alex went to the door. Samantha was leaning against the wall in the hallway, her coat over one arm, looking at her phone without actually reading it. She looked up. "He's asking for you," Alex said. She looked at him. Then she looked past him at the door. She straightened. She put her phone away. She walked in. Leo was watching the door. When she came in, he said, "I finished the drawing. Before all this, I was going to show you both." A pause. "It's in the sketchbook. Page 43. Samantha looked at Alex. Alex shrugged. She opened the sketchbook to page 43. It was the three of them. Charcoal and color. The cobalt and amber and deep gold of the 150 color set. Alex and Leo on one side, the way they always were. Him tall, Leo beside him. Leo's pencil behind his ear. And on the other side of them, Samantha, not distant, not separate, but close, her shoulder level with Alex's, her face turned slightly toward them, wearing an expression that Leo had rendered in careful, patient detail. Not happiness exactly, but something deeper, something that looked like the specific relief of someone who has arrived somewhere they didn't know they were looking for. Underneath it, in Leo's clean, careful print, a single line. She stopped too. Samantha stared at the drawing for a long time. She did not say anything. She put her hand over her mouth once briefly, and then put it down and looked at Leo. And Leo looked back at her with those clear, decided eyes. "It's good, right?" he said. She breathed out. "It's perfect," she said. "I know," he said. Then he closed his eyes and went back to sleep, the sketchbook on the pillow beside him, the way another kid might sleep with a stuffed animal, and outside the window, the March light was going gold, and the city was doing its ordinary evening things, and inside that room, the three of them were still. Spring came, the way Ohio springs always came, gradually, and then, all at once, the gray peeling back like something that had only ever been temporary. Leo recovered at home, which was the Cincinnati apartment at first, then Millbrook, with a follow-up schedule that Daria had helped organize around Alex's work calendar without being asked. He went back to school in April. He drew something every day. He did not talk about the surgery much, which was his way. Not avoidance, just economy, putting the energy where it was useful. Alex opened the storage unit in April too, on a Saturday morning alone, because some things needed to be done alone first. He stood in front of the unit for a moment, and then he opened the door. He stood in the light coming in from behind him and looked at the boxes and the furniture and the particular archaeology of a life lived with someone, and he breathed through it, the full weight of it, the grief that was still there, and would always be there, clean and permanent, and his the way love remains after it changes shape. He took the photograph of Claire at the lake and put it in his shirt pocket. He closed the unit. He drove home. That evening he put the photograph on the kitchen windowsill in the light where it could be seen. Leo saw it when he came in for dinner and stopped and looked at it for a long moment. He didn't say anything. He put his hand on Alex's arm briefly as he passed the gesture of an almost 12-year-old who understood more than he said, and went to set the table. Alex texted Samantha a photo of the windowsill. No caption. She replied in a minute Claire would like the light there. He set his phone down. He looked at the photograph. He thought she would too. They did not become something loud. That was not the shape of either of them. What they became was steady, the kind of thing that builds without announcement day after day. Phone call after phone call, a Saturday in Cincinnati, a Sunday in Millbrook. Leo drawing at the table, while the two adults talked in the kitchen about work, and about nothing in particular, and about all the things that live in the space between work and nothing. Samantha returned to the full weight of her world, the companies, the decisions, the rooms that bent to her shape. But she carried something back into those rooms that hadn't been there before. She began to ask before acting. Not as a rule she followed, but as a reflex she'd built slowly, the way you build anything real. She called more often from numbers that were just her, not her office. She sent Leo a new sketchbook for his birthday with a note that said, "For the next 43 pages," and Leo put it on his desk next to the tin of colored pencils, like the two things belonged together. And Alex Mercer, who had driven alone down a dark highway on a night when he had $43 and a sick kid at home and every reason to keep moving. Alex Mercer learned slowly and without ceremony what it felt like to let the weight distribute. To be helped without being diminished. To accept something without the receiving of it costing him the thing that made him who he was. He was still the man who stopped. He would always be that man. But now, when he drove Route 9 at night and passed the stretch of guardrail where it had all started, he no longer felt the particular loneliness of a person doing the right thing in the dark with no one watching. He felt something different. Something that had been built piece by piece out of honesty and patience, and two people who had each in their own way learned the same hard lesson that the most valuable things in a life are not the ones that arrive easily, are not the ones that can be purchased or arranged or protected from a safe distance. They are the ones you choose to stay for, the ones you choose to stop for, every single time.